know that customer satisfaction scores are important. How do we manage that? How do we kind of take that best approach? What's the? I believe it was Peter Drucker who said you can only manage what you measure, and we've seen CSAT being such a widely cited critical KPI. There does seem to be something of a disconnect that came out of the data in the study of the sophistication of the customer success metrics, and I think this echoes your last point there, Kevin, as well. There's a slight disconnect between the level of sophistication of how we measure it and the weight of importance we're seeing on these metrics. And the standard means of measuring CSAT that are widely used, NPS, customer satisfaction stories, manager level communication, these are nothing particularly new. My worry is that they perhaps they give us a very specific, this is the point in time. I mean, let's have a little look at some of the data around this. We saw all of those, for example, hitting around the 60% mark in terms of the use. They were very, very prevalent. Over 2/3 of companies using all of these. Very, very slight variations, 58, 57, I think 61. Then when we start to come down to some of these more dynamic or more sophisticated tools such as sentiment analysis or the leveraging of social media monitoring, etc., we saw quite a significant drop. We saw 15% for sentiment analysis, 8% for social media monitoring, and I think what really resonated with me was only 43% of the companies, so less than half of the companies in the study. They said that the metrics that were being used to measure CSAT were only reasonably accurate. So accurate, but only, again, we have that kind of benchmark there where it's extremely accurate, very accurate, reasonable being one of the lower scores. So there's not that weight of confidence that we saw in the early numbers that we saw on the slides earlier. I mean, some of the data around this, like I said, we've got the NPS, manager level, customer contact, customer satisfaction score is all seen there, and we'll see on the graphic all around that 60% mark. Again, just to reaffirm that the sentiment analysis, only 15% of companies using that kind of tool. Social media monitoring, again, only 7%. And I think as I do the second report on this, and I'm doing the follow-up interviews, which we're currently working with some of the respondents, doing some more in-depth analysis and discussions. One of the things I'm looking at in there is where that weighting is for that small group. Are they more B2C centered? I think that's something that's starting to come out of the conversations, but I can't confirm that as yet. But early conversations, that seems to be the case. And this statistic there, the 48%, only reasonably accurate. Whereas 36% said that very, very accurate, and only 10% said that their customer satisfaction was very accurate. So only 10% of companies, a very small best in class, believe that they're very, very accurate. I mean, for me, like I said at the opening of this part of the conversation, it seems that these are very important metrics, but nowhere near as robust as some of the more operationally led metrics. I think if we ask companies, how confident they were in their tech utilization rates, or their first-time fix rates, or their failure to return rates, etc., I think those are much easier to capture. I mean, Is this the big area? I suppose this is the question I'll put to you guys first. And Danny, maybe I can ask you this first. Is this a key area that should be the area for focus on for service companies? Are the existing metrics such as NPS, are they adequate, or should they be seen as just a basic foundation that we can build on? Am I maybe pushing at an open door here?
Well,
what's your thoughts, Danny?
I think they're imperfect. The measures that we have at the moment are imperfect. By definition, they are quite structured. There's a limited set of questions you can get. People don't always respond. They might not respond. So you get responses very much at the extreme ends of the spectrum, and people are very unhappy or very happy.
Yeah.
And also, if, for instance, when we have a mechanism where the engineer collects it, it's not pleasant to give bad feedback and so on. So I think they're limited. I think they have a role to play, but I actually believe that sentiment analysis is at the beginning now of this process, and in a few years' time, if we look back, it will be as standard as our questionnaires are today. Because sentiment analysis, you don't have to do anything. It just happens as part of the process. You don't have to collect it separately. And it can give you insight in this very sort of soft and ill-defined, almost vague feelings that you would get in a call center, but are difficult to quantify because of specific words that get said. And that's becoming very much now, a tool that we can use, that we can monitor the tone of the conversation, flag it up, and then quantify that to give you a much better, and I think a much more objective analysis of the real picture. Yeah.
It's interesting. I absolutely agree. And as you're speaking, the visual came to my mind of it's almost the sentiment analysis is almost it's like the sweeping strings of the orchestra whilst the various other instrument takes the lead takes it. It's what sets that wider tone. It's what sets that feel. Yeah, that's absolutely critical, isn't it? And I think I do think that like I said, I have a suspicion I may be pushing an open door on that anyway, and I think that's what you're saying as well.
And then also, if I just may add, you very specific set of questions might say, did the engineer turn up on time, right? But it may not capture the specific issue that you have to book that call. You had to wait 2 hours in the queue in the call center because that just wasn't something that the organization was concerned with. Sentiment analysis would pick that up, because if somebody says to you on the phone, gosh, it's taken for ages, right? That would come into sentiment analysis. It wouldn't come into customer insight necessarily.